I am excited. How's this for a man cave turn up? None other than the former Deputy Prime Minister, the beautiful big brain that is, John Anderson. Lovely to see you.
Good to be with you, Paul.
The wonderful representative of the City of Sydney. I always try to do an equal pump up.
Thanks.
Somebody who loves to represent local government around the country, none other than Labor-loving, red to her bootstraps, jacket, lipstick and all, none other than Linda Scott. So, you must be feeling a little nervous now that yet another poll says that it's that Yes goes backwards by the week. Do you get any sense that it is going backwards by the week? Do you think that polling firms are searching for headlines? Because I've got to say, while I think that No's well and truly in the box seat, I don't believe New South Wales and Victoria are off the table yet, but what do you think?
So, look, polls come, polls go, and polls in referendums
They're all going in one direction.
Always pretty weird, aren't they?
Yeah.
Like the Brexit polls were really, really wrong, right? So these are really difficult polls to do. And I also think it is really difficult because in my patch of the world, in the City of Sydney, it's a very strong yes vote. I was door knocking yesterday, so many people talking about how they support yes. I went down to the local public school, little trivia quiz fundraiser on Saturday night in my yes jumper. Massive, overwhelming support. Out there in the regions, though, when I talk to the mayors across Australia, absolutely, it's often quite a different picture. It's a much more mixed picture where people are talking to me about why they're concerned, because often they just don't understand that this is an advisory body, that government will be able to legislate how that works, and that means different governments over time. And so once you often explain that to people, they come around. It's still my view there's more than enough soft yes voters to get this proposition over the line.
So let's imagine exactly the opposite. That's John's position on all of this, right? But I wanted to ask you about, as somebody who did advocate for a big idea, that GST change in 1998, it almost cost the Howard government. It lost basically most of its backbench, lost the popular vote. But I mentioned this last week, that one of the reasons I think it was successful was it was an offer to the public to take a whole bunch of stuff off the table and then replace it with something else. There is no such offer on the table in relation to the voice. Nobody's saying NIAA, see you later, NAIDOC week, goodbye. There's no offer here. It's just building on top of a whole series of things that have got us to the failed place that we are, which I know is one of the ultimate arguments for the yes case. But as somebody who has argued a big idea before, I know you don't want to give free ideas to the PM, but what has he not done in trying to take people, even if they disagree with the idea, but just as tactics?
Well, does anybody really think the Prime Minister tried to build a national consensus for this?
No.
That's the problem. It smacks of an old-class warfare approach. You've got a lot of people commenting on this. There was no attempt to pull the nation together, no attempt to work out what might work, no attempt to say either, if we engage in this great act of national reconciliation, which is dividing us down the middle, at what point do we say we're making progress? At what point do we ask people to meet us? Look, this thing is, as you know, as you've just touched on, it's being rejected in the regions. I can tell you there's quite deep anger about it. And one of the reasons there's anger for it is that there's a deep suspicion that, in fact, this just involves more and more and more guilt industry stuff and more money, when, in fact, Pearson himself belled the cat so effectively. Sit-down money is what's done the damage. So where's the quid pro quo? At what point do we say we keep making symbolic measures, we keep putting in genuine resources? At what point do you accept some agency, another Noel Pearson term, and say we will take on responsibility and do more? I think that's a real problem. I think it's dehumanising and cheapening of people to say there's no expectation. We'll just go on taking on guilt, the guilt of our forefathers, which is inappropriate and unwise in itself. And now we're telling 4- and 5-year-olds in school that they have to be sorry. What have 4- and 5-year-olds done that is wrong?
Correct. Well, also...
And people in the bush, they see this. And this is one of the most unfortunate divides you've got of all. I've been in Sydney for the last few weeks because my wife has had a knee replacement, moving around, and I'm struck by... I'm going to be really blunt about this. Seems that the less actual involvement you've had, and I've grown up with Aboriginal people, Warren Mundine and I, our families have been intertwined since the 1830s. This does really matter. But there's a disconnect here between the people who are actually at the front line and see what failed policies have done and believe this is just more of the same, albeit with a big constitutional risk. It is, as no less a figure than Paul Kelly has put it, there's no more experienced political observer in Australia, a fourth arm of government inserted in the Constitution.